In an age where noise drowns meaning, where every man seeks validation in the hollow glow of a screen, remember this. The samurai never shouted his strength, he lived it in silence. True power, like steel, is forged in fire unseen by others. The Hagane no Ishi, the will of steel, born not from applause but from endurance. The strong man walks the path of Bushido, where discipline replaces display and mastery replaces noise. He does not seek eyes upon him, for his spirit burns brighter in solitude than any spotlight could reveal. In every era, there are warriors who choose the unseen path. Those who train in quiet, bleed in shadows, and rise without witness. This is not the way of arrogance, but of Shin, the still heart that conquers chaos. To those who stand among this brotherhood of silent strength, comment "I forge within" and subscribe to join a community of men who build their legacy in silence, not status. Thank you for walking this warrior's path, a path not of show, but of soul. In the hidden chambers of a man's soul, there lies a forge that few will ever see, a place where strength is not shouted, but shaped in silence. This is the silent forge, the sacred ground where warriors are made, not by the hands of others, but by the steady hammer of self-discipline and the relentless fire of purpose. The world outside screams for attention, for validation, for applause, but inside the forge there is only the sound of breath, the rhythm of effort, the quiet agony of becoming. Here, every strike against the iron of one's weaknesses sends sparks of transformation into the air. It is not a place for comfort or admiration. It is a crucible where pride burns away and only truth remains. The truth of what you are when no one is watching. The truth of what you are when no one is watching. The samurai knew this, that the essence of mastery is unseen. True power doesn't perform, it endures. It bends, hardens, and refines in stillness, until the man himself becomes as unbreakable as the blade he wields. To live within the silent forge is to reject the need for the world's acknowledgement. In this age of noise, men chase reflections, images of power rather than the substance of it. They build illusions of greatness, carefully curated for screens yet empty of depth. But the strong man knows that a blade's strength is not proven by its shine, but by its resilience under pressure. He trains in silence, not because he is unseen, but because he does not need to be seen. He learns that every moment of restraint, every repetition, every sacrifice is a strike of the hammer upon his soul. The process is slow, invisible, and often painful, but it forges an essence no eye can measure, the calm ferocity of one who depends on nothing external for his worth. In the silence of his effort, he becomes something timeless, a weapon sharpened not for display, but for purpose. In the silent forge, a man learns to embrace solitude as a teacher. The world calls it loneliness, but the warrior calls it clarity. Alone there are no distractions, only the reflection of the self, unfiltered and raw. It is here he meets his fears, his doubts, and his hidden potential. The fire of transformation burns hottest in this quiet, not the fire of rage, but the fire of focus. Every struggle, every setback, every failure becomes a lesson folded into his steel. The samurai meditated on Shin, the mind that is still under chaos, and through stillness they gain dominion over themselves. So too must the modern warrior seek that stillness. The strong man does not rush to share his journey, for he knows that speaking too soon robs the fire of its heat. He works while others talk, grows while others boast, and his silence becomes his strength, the mark of one who has transcended the need for validation. In time, the silent forge transforms the man entirely. He emerges not with pride, but with peace. A quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by the world's noise. His presence commands respect, not through words, but through the aura of mastery that silence breeds. He knows that true strength is never loud. It is felt, not heard. The samurai understood this truth deeply, that a warrior's spirit must be tempered like steel, hardened through trial, but always balanced with humility. That is a way to win. In this way, the silent man becomes immovable, not because he hides, but because he has nothing left to prove. His silence is not emptiness. It is full of discipline, of focus, of purpose. And in that sacred silence, where the world no longer dictates his worth, he finds the purest form of power, the strength to be unseen yet unstoppable. In the dim corridors of self-mastery, there exists a sacred principle known only to those who walk the warrior's path: the discipline of shadows. It is the art of moving unseen, not in secrecy, but in strength. The samurai called it shinobi no kokoro, the heart of one who acts without the need for recognition. In a world intoxicated by exposure, where men mistake visibility for value, the disciplined warrior withdraws into the shade to sharpen his edge. He understands that greatness thrives away from the spotlight, that the seeds of mastery grow strongest in the soil untouched by attention. The shadows become his sanctuary, his training ground, where his failures are not mocked and his victories are not flaunted. Every repetition, every silent battle, every quiet victory builds a foundation that no audience can give and no failure can shake. In the shadows, he does not escape the world. He conquers himself. To live by the discipline of shadows is to reject the shallow pursuit of being seen, and instead to seek the deeper victory of becoming. The world equates presence with proof, but the strong man knows that the truest battles are fought beyond sight. Like a blade forged in secret, his progress is invisible, but his transformation inevitable. He trains when others sleep, studies when others speak, and endures when others quit. His discipline is not for applause. It is a vow, a quiet covenant between him and his purpose. The shadows hide his toil, but they also protect his fire from being extinguished by distraction. He understands that what grows too exposed to light often dies too soon. Thus he becomes the storm before it is seen, the blade drawn only when necessary, the spirit that moves unseen, yet shakes the world when revealed. In the discipline of shadows, a man finds not isolation but freedom, freedom from the vanity that enslaves so many. He learns to act without craving recognition, to grow without validation, and to lead without boasting. The samurai spoke of Mushin, the mind of no mind, a state where action flows pure and unclouded by ego. To reach it, a warrior must detach from the need for attention and immerse fully in the task before him. The disciplined man becomes a ghost of ambition, present but unconsumed by desire. He no longer measures his worth by the echo of applause, but by the silence of his own consistency. When others falter in the eyes of judgment, he endures unseen, knowing that mastery is not a moment of praise, but a lifetime of persistence. His shadows become a mirror, reflecting his truest form, unfiltered, unpretentious, unbreakable. Eventually, the discipline of shadows reveals its greatest gift: control. The man who lives by it learns to govern his impulses, his emotions, and his energy. He no longer reacts, he responds. His restraint becomes a weapon sharper than any sword. While others scatter their strength chasing visibility, he gathers his in silence, focusing it like the tip of a blade. The samurai believed that a true warrior must be invisible until the strike, not because he hides, but because he masters timing, patience, and humility. The disciplined man waits, refines, and acts when the world least expects it. His strength is quiet, his movements deliberate, and his victories inevitable. He becomes the unseen architect of his destiny, a figure shaped by focus, not fame. And when the time comes for him to step from the shadows, the world will not see a man who sought the light. They will see one who became it. There exists a strength that cannot be bought with praise, nor measured by likes nor affirmed by applause. The strength beyond validation. It is the quiet force that rises when no one is watching, the unseen flame that burns without needing to be witnessed. In the philosophy of the samurai, this is the essence of Fudoshin, the immovable heart, It is the state of inner steadiness that cannot be shaken by the opinions of others. In a world obsessed with attention, the man who walks this path becomes a paradox. Powerful yet invisible, driven yet detached. He does not chase validation because he understands that every time a man seeks approval, he sells a piece of his soul. True strength is found not in the eyes of others, but in the mirror of one's own integrity. The warrior learns to build his foundation upon self-respect, not recognition. Like a mountain unmoved by the wind, he stands firm, even as the world around him trembles. For approval. To embody the strength beyond validation is to declare freedom from the chains of external judgment. It is the act of reclaiming one's purpose from the grip of vanity. The modern world has made performance a religion, a ritual of constant display, where worth is determined by visibility. But the strong man, the true warrior, walks another path. He withdraws from the theater of validation and turns inward, where the real battle begins. He no longer needs the applause of the crowd because he understands the truth. Applause cannot make a man strong, only trial can. He embraces solitude as a forge where self-worth is forged from pain, not praise. He trains, endures, and evolves without broadcasting his journey, because his spirit does not crave witness, it craves mastery. In silence he grows, in obscurity he becomes unstoppable. In this quiet pursuit, the strength beyond validation transforms a man's heart. The samurai believed that dependence on others for validation weakens the soul, just as soft metal cannot hold an edge. A warrior must be tempered by his own fire. Each challenge faced alone, each setback endured without comfort, adds weight to his spirit. He learns that discipline is devotion without recognition, that sacrifice is strength without reward. And when doubt creeps in, as it always does, he remembers that his purpose was never to be seen, it was to be forged. Validation, he realizes, is the currency of the uncertain. The man of strength has no need to trade his peace for approval. He does not move to impress, he moves to improve. His victories are silent, but their echoes last forever, carried not through words, but through the force of his presence. Ultimately, the strength beyond validation is not about isolation, but about sovereignty, the power to define oneself without the world's permission. The samurai bowed to no audience, for his honor was bound to his code, not his image. So too the modern warrior must live by his own creed, guided by values deeper than praise. When he rises with purpose. When he acts from conviction, not from need. His worth is internal, his direction unmoved by the shifting tides of opinion. He knows that strength proven to others fades, but strength proven to oneself endures. In his silence there is thunder. In his restraint there is command, and in his refusal to seek validation, he becomes what few men ever achieve: complete, calm, and unshakably free. In a world where honor has become a forgotten language, where principles are traded for popularity, there stands an ancient code that still breathes through those who walk the warrior's path. The Code of Bushido. It is not merely a set of rules, but a way of life carved into the soul through discipline, courage, and moral clarity. To the samurai, Bushido was the invisible armor, the inner compass that guided every action, every choice, every sacrifice. It demanded that a man serve not his ego but his purpose, not the crowd but the truth. In this code there is no space for pretense or vanity, for Bushido measures a man not by what he shows, but by what he stands for when unseen. Honor, Meiyo. Integrity, Ji. Courage, Yu. Respect, Rei, and loyalty. Chugi. These are not ancient relics but eternal flames that still burn in those who refuse to bend. A man who follows Bushido does not speak his virtue, he lives it. Quietly, steadfastly, and without need for applause. To live by the Code of Bushido in the modern world is to resist its decay, to stand tall in a time when truth is negotiable and weakness is disguised as virtue. The man of Bushido does not post his discipline, he embodies it. His word is bond, his actions deliberate, and his silence louder than any declaration. He understands that honor cannot be borrowed from approval, nor forged in performance. He understands that honor, nor the hatred not beset, nor imprison, it must be built through consistency, through 1,000 unseen choices that align word with deed. When temptation calls him toward the easy path of validation, he recalls Makoto, sincerity of heart, the virtue that binds him to authenticity. The warrior does not boast of his strength, because strength that must be proven is already lost. His code is his fortress, and within it he finds both purpose and peace. The Code of Bushido also demands balance, the mastery of both blade and spirit. The samurai trained not only to fight, but to be still, to temper power with wisdom. In that duality lies true mastery, fierceness with restraint, confidence without arrogance, dominance guided by compassion. The modern warrior, too, must learn this harmony. To walk the path of Bushido is to fight without hatred, to lead without pride, and to endure without complaint. The code reminds him that victory achieved without virtue is hollow, and that strength without honor is corruption. Each principle of Bushido becomes a pillar of his identity, shaping not the image he presents, but the man he truly is. Through discipline and humility, he forges his soul into steel that no doubt can pierce and no temptation can rust. In the quiet heart of the Code of Bushido lies its greatest truth. A man's worth is measured not by what he gains, but by what he gives. The warrior gives his best effort, his unwavering loyalty and his unbreakable spirit, even when unseen. He holds himself to a higher law, not for praise, but because it is the only path worthy of respect. In a world that glorifies rebellion without cause, Bushido teaches discipline with direction. It restores sacred order to chaos and gives meaning to endurance. The modern man who embraces this code becomes more than a product of his time. He becomes a timeless force. Guided by honor, shielded by discipline, and driven by purpose, he no longer needs validation, for he has something far greater: the eternal strength of character. In the deepest chambers of the warrior's soul, beyond fear, pride, and desire, there lies a sacred state of being. The stillness of Shin. To the samurai, Shin meant heart, spirit, and mind fused into one, the unshakable core of one's essence. It is the calm that exists beneath chaos, the eye of the storm that no wind can disturb. In this stillness, the warrior becomes invincible, not because he conquers others, but because he has conquered himself. The world today moves in noise, endless opinions, distractions, and demands. Yet the man of Shin stands motionless within, unreactive to the world's turbulence. Like a mountain reflected upon still water, he mirrors life without distortion. He does not act from emotion, but from awareness. His silence is not weakness, it is mastery. This stillness, forged through discipline and meditation, gives him power over the one battlefield that truly matters, his own mind. To live with the stillness of Shin is to train the heart to be unmoved by both praise and blame. The samurai called this balance Hichoshin, the everyday calm mind, unshaken by victory or defeat. The man who cultivates such stillness cannot be manipulated by trends or tempted by vanity, for his direction comes from within, not from noise. The strong man knows that control over the mind is the foundation of all mastery, the source of patience, clarity, and unbreakable focus. In stillness, he observes himself as he would an enemy, cutting away weakness with precision. This serenity is not passive, it is active command, the deliberate choice to remain centered while others react. The modern warrior must reclaim this lost art, for in a time where attention is the most stolen resource, inner stillness becomes a weapon of liberation. In the stillness of Shin, action becomes effortless. The samurai practiced Mushin no Shin, the mind of no mind, a state where thought no longer interrupts movement and instinct flows from mastery. The man who reaches this state no longer hesitates, doubts, or overthinks. His focus is so pure that the boundary between him and the task disappears. Whether he fights, works, or speaks, his energy is complete, unbroken by distraction or fear. This level of calm does not come naturally. It is forged in years of repetition, reflection, and restraint. The man of stillness does not react to the chaos of others. He absorbs it, transforms it, and remains composed. The loudest men crumble under pressure because their minds are turbulent seas. But the warrior whose heart is still moves with precision, grace, and unyielding confidence, untouched by the storm that consumes others. Ultimately, the stillness of Shin transforms a man into something rare, a living embodiment of peace amidst conflict. His strength is invisible but undeniable, his presence commanding without words. The samurai saw this stillness as the highest form of power, the state where one's will is absolute, unclouded by emotion or ego. The modern man who seeks this path must turn inward, away from distraction toward discipline and reflection. Through meditation, breath, and solitude, he forges a calm that no insult can provoke, no chaos can disturb, and no failure can break. He becomes like the still blade before the strike, silent, precise, and certain. In a world that worships noise, the man of Shin becomes immortal through silence. His peace is not escape, it is dominance, mastery over self, over thought, and over the unseen battlefield within. Deep within the spirit of every true warrior burns a flame that cannot be extinguished. The fire of Hagane no Ishi, the will of steel. It is not born from talent or fortune, but from suffering, from the relentless clash between desire and discipline, between weakness and will. The samurai understood that a man's strength is not determined by what he can do when life is easy, but by what he endures when life turns to fire. Hagane no Ishi is the power to continue striking the blade long after the hands bleed. It is the unyielding commitment to rise again, no matter how many times one is broken. In this sacred fire, pain becomes purpose, and defeat becomes fuel. The man who walks through this fire emerges hardened, purified of doubt, and immune to the world's noise. For him, the flames no longer burn, they build. His will is not loud or boastful. It is quiet and unbreakable, the steady heat that never fades. To embody the fire of Hagane no Ishi is to embrace hardship as the forge of one's becoming. The weak flee from pain, seeking comfort and validation, but the strong man walks toward it, knowing that only through fire does iron become steel. Each challenge, each setback, each rejection is another strike of the hammer shaping his soul. The samurai believed that adversity was the divine teacher, that through shugyo, austere training, a man's spirit could transcend all limitation. The modern warrior must learn the same truth. The world will not hand you strength. You must forge it through suffering. The fire tests your patience, your endurance, and your devotion to purpose. It demands everything, but gives something priceless in return. Resilience that cannot be taught, only earned. And when others break, the man of steel does not bend, he sharpens. In the fire of Hagane no Ishi, pain is no longer an enemy. It becomes the language of growth. The samurai saw no value in ease, for ease dulls the edge of the spirit. Instead, they sought to dwell where most would quit, in discomfort, discipline, and repetition. The modern man who adopts this mindset transforms pain into power. When life scorches him with loss, fatigue, or failure, he endures without complaint, because he understands that the flame refines him. It burns away weakness, ego, and doubt until only the essence of his true will remains. Every hardship faced without surrender strengthens the armor of his soul. Every scar becomes a symbol of transformation. The will of steel does not fear pressure. It invites it. For in the furnace of struggle, A man either melts or becomes unbreakable. The warrior chooses the latter. Ultimately, the fire of Hagane no Shi is the eternal test, the proving ground of spirit. It demands total devotion to the path of mastery, even when no one sees the fight. The samurai did not pray for lighter burdens, they prayed for stronger backs. That is the essence of the will of steel, to embrace the fire, to welcome the pain, to move forward without hesitation or complaint. The man who carries this fire becomes untouchable by the trivial trials of modern life. He does not seek comfort, he seeks conquest of self. His endurance is his weapon, his perseverance his creed. And when the world collapses under its own weakness, he remains. A silent flame in the dark, forged in suffering, guided by honor, and strengthened by the unbreakable will that only the fire can create. In the philosophy of the samurai, all things, victory, pain, glory, and life itself, were seen through the lens of Mujo, the truth of impermanence. The power of Mujo is not sorrow, it is liberation. It is the wisdom that everything fades, that nothing lasts, and that within this passing flow lies true strength. To the warrior, every sunrise was a reminder that his time was fleeting and therefore sacred. He trained, not to defy death, but to honor life while he still possessed it. Mujo teaches that the blade will dull, the body will tire, and the moment will vanish. Yet the spirit that accepts this reality becomes unbreakable. The man who understands impermanence no longer clings to outcome or recognition. He fights not to preserve his image, but to fulfill his duty. In this way, impermanence becomes power. The power to move forward without fear, to let go without regret, and to live with intensity born of awareness. To embrace the power of Mujo is to see through the illusion of permanence that enslaves so many. The world teaches men to chase lasting security, endless validation, eternal youth. All illusions destined to collapse. But the warrior smiles at this truth, for he knows that what ends is what makes life meaningful. Like the cherry blossoms that bloom brightly only to fall, he lives beautifully and bravely, knowing each breath may be his last. The samurai called this awareness Mona no Awe, the gentle sadness of impermanence that deepens appreciation for existence. The strong man today must rediscover this art, to love without attachment, to fight without obsession, and to give without expectation. The fleeting nature of life does not weaken him, it strengthens his resolve to act while he can. His purpose sharpens, his gratitude deepens, and his fear fades. For he no longer seeks to escape time, he seeks to honor it. Within the power of Mujo lies the freedom to evolve. The man who resists change suffers endlessly. The one who accepts it transforms infinitely. The samurai moved with the flow of fate, adapting without losing their core. The modern warrior must do the same, accept the fall of seasons, the loss of comfort, and the death of old selves. He understands that impermanence is the forge of renewal. Failure becomes not a wound, but a transition. Endings become openings. Every fall is a call to rise higher. Every loss an invitation to grow wiser. The fire of Mujo does not destroy, it purifies. The man who lives by this law ceases to mourn what has passed, and begins to build what can still become. In his eyes, every moment is both dying and being born, and that realization makes him unshakable, calm in change and graceful in adversity. Ultimately, the power of Mujo gives a man mastery over time itself, not by freezing it, but by flowing with it. The samurai knew that strength without acceptance is brittleness, and only through impermanence can resilience breathe. The modern man who embraces this truth no longer wastes energy resisting what must change. He lets go with honor, moves forward with discipline, and finds peace in transience. This is not weakness, it is enlightenment. To live with Mujo is to live as the river does, constant in motion, yet eternal in spirit. The man of impermanence understands that all glory fades, but character endures. All victories pass, but honor remains. And when his time comes to fade into the silence of history, he will not grasp or fear, he will bow to the flow, knowing he has lived as the samurai did, fully, fiercely and free, within the truth that nothing lasts, yet everything matters. There comes a point in every warrior's journey where strength, skill and endurance are no longer enough, where the battle turns inward and the enemy is the self. This is the edge of self-mastery, the razor-thin line between control and chaos, between discipline and destruction. The samurai understood that the sharpest blade in the world is useless in the hands of a man who cannot wield his own spirit. To master the self is to master all things. The edge of self-mastery is where one learns that the mind, untrained, is a sword that cuts its own wielder. The warrior must temper his impulses, sharpen his focus, and polish his heart until it reflects only truth. The world tempts him with distraction, ego, and comfort, yet he stands at this edge, steady, unflinching, refining his will through restraint. Each decision becomes a test of alignment, every thought a potential weapon or weakness. The man who lives here learns that the greatest victories are silent, won within the chambers of his own mind, far from applause or recognition. To walk the edge of self-mastery is to accept that discipline must rule where emotion once reigned. The samurai trained to act from clarity, not impulse, to move with intention, not reaction. The man of mastery becomes a sculptor of his own soul, carving away fear, pride, and hesitation until only essence remains. Every repetition, every act of control, every sacrifice is a stroke of the blade shaping his spirit. This edge is not comfortable. It demands precision, awareness, and unyielding honesty. The moment he grows careless, he falls into arrogance, into laziness, into chaos. The man of self-mastery does not seek perfection, for he knows it is unattainable. He seeks progress, one cut, one choice, one moment at a time. Through failure he learns patience. Through restraint he gains power. His calm is forged in conflict, his strength in silence. And as he learns to command himself, he no longer needs to command others, for mastery radiates its own authority. In the edge of self-mastery, pain becomes a mentor, and reflection a weapon. The samurai did not fear discomfort, they pursued it, for only under pressure does one's true nature reveal itself. The modern warrior must do the same. To face his weaknesses with brutal honesty, to confront the habits that dull his spirit. Self-mastery is not the denial of emotion, but the direction of it. Anger becomes fuel, fear becomes focus, desire becomes discipline. The man who reaches this level no longer fights against himself, but moves in harmony with his nature. He learns to channel chaos into creation, to transform struggle into skill. When others are controlled by temptation, he remains unmoved. When others boast, he listens. When others doubt, he acts. The edge he walks is dangerous, for the slightest lapse can undo years of progress. But in that danger lies the beauty of mastery itself, a constant dance between power and humility, fire and stillness. Ultimately, the edge of self-mastery is not an end, but an eternal pursuit, the ceaseless refinement of the warrior's inner blade. The samurai believed that mastery is not achieved in a single moment, but lived through every breath. The man who embraces this truth knows that he will never be finished, and that is his freedom. He does not chase comfort or completion, he chases control over himself, knowing that is where all true strength begins. His presence becomes his proof, his silence becomes his authority. He is not a man without weakness, he is a man who has learned to command it. The world may never see the battles he fights or the victories he earns, yet his spirit shines with a quiet sharpness, the gleam of a blade that cuts through illusion, doubt, and ego. For the man who stands at the edge of self-mastery is no longer just living. He is forging himself endlessly into something unbreakable. In a world addicted to noise and connection, few understand the sacred strength of standing alone. The Armor of Solitude. To the samurai, solitude was not loneliness, it was the crucible where the soul is reforged. It was in silence that they sharpened their mind, honed their spirit, and heard the voice of their own purpose. The man who learns to walk alone does not retreat from the world. He rises above it. Solitude becomes his armor, invisible, unyielding, and pure. Within it he finds clarity, unclouded by opinion, direction untouched by distraction, and peace that no validation can provide. The warrior who wears this armor does not depend on the presence of others to know his worth. He finds strength in stillness and purpose in isolation. Like a mountain unmoved by the storm, he stands alone, not as an outcast, but as one who has mastered the art of being complete within himself. To wear the armor of solitude is to embrace silence as both shield and teacher. In solitude, the man sees himself without illusion, stripped of roles, titles, and external noise. The samurai called this kokoro no shugyo, the training of the heart. It is in these quiet hours that the warrior faces his fears without escape, confronts his weaknesses without excuse, and discovers the discipline to stand firm when others need a crowd to feel strong. Solitude is not a void, it is a forge. It burns away dependence and tempers the will into something unbreakable. The man who learns to walk through his own loneliness transforms it into power. He no longer fears silence, because he has learned that silence is where truth speaks loudest. The crowd may offer comfort, but only solitude offers wisdom, and wisdom is the true armor of the disciplined soul. In the armor of solitude, a man learns to stand without the scaffolding of approval or companionship. He becomes his own foundation. The samurai meditated for hours in isolation, not to escape life, but to prepare for it. The modern warrior must do the same. Solitude teaches self-reliance, resilience, and serenity. It strengthens the mind by stripping away the distractions that weaken it. When a man can be alone without seeking escape, without reaching for entertainment, validation, or distraction, he attains mastery over himself. In solitude, he realizes that peace is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the presence of purpose. His solitude becomes sacred ground, a space where his focus sharpens, his resolve deepens, and his vision clears. Others may see distance, but in truth, he is drawing closer to who he truly is. Ultimately, the armor of solitude makes a man untouchable, not cold, but calm, not distant, but disciplined. He walks among others with quiet confidence, needing nothing, giving everything. The samurai wore their solitude like armor beneath their robes. Unseen, yet always present. It was what allowed them to act with clarity in chaos, to lead without seeking recognition, to love without dependence. The modern warrior who learns this art no longer fears being alone, because he knows solitude does not isolate. It liberates. In his quiet, he becomes self-sufficient, balanced, and whole. He draws strength not from noise, but from stillness, not from approval, but from awareness. For in a world that constantly seeks connection to avoid itself, the man who wears the armor of solitude stands apart, a living fortress of peace, power, and purpose, invincible not because he hides from the world, but because he no longer needs it to stand. In every era there are those who fight to be seen, and then there are those who fight to become. The path of the unseen warrior belongs to the latter. It is the silent road walked by men who value mastery over attention, purpose over praise, and truth over noise. The samurai lived by this path, guided by the belief that the truest warrior leaves no trail of vanity behind him. His deeds are not for spectacle, they are for the soul. To walk unseen is to walk free, free from the eyes of judgment, free from the chains of validation, free from the need to prove. The unseen warrior does not announce his strength, he embodies it. His silence is his strategy, his humility his armor. The modern world cannot comprehend such restraint, for it worships exposure. But the warrior smiles quietly, knowing that visibility is not victory. His triumph is inward, measured not in recognition but in refinement. To follow the path of the unseen warrior is to dedicate oneself to mastery that asks for nothing in return. The samurai call this Seishin Tanren, the forging of the spirit. It is a lifelong process, a sacred discipline where progress is invisible to all but the self. The unseen warrior trains while the world sleeps, studies while others boast, and remains devoted while others drift. He does not need to broadcast his evolution because he knows that truth requires no advertisement. His actions are his testimony, his character the proof. Each silent repetition, each moment of endurance, each private battle won, all of it builds a foundation stronger than applause could ever offer. The unseen warrior's power grows quietly, like roots beneath the earth, unseen yet unstoppable. The louder the world becomes, the deeper his silence cuts, until even his calm becomes a form of defiance. In the path of the unseen warrior, humility is not weakness, it is strength refined. The samurai believe that pride blinds the warrior, but humility sharpens his sight. The unseen man does not need to proclaim his virtue or prove his worth, because his life itself becomes proof. He moves with grace, aware that greatness unspoken carries more weight than words. He leads not through command, but through presence, through consistency, discipline, and unshakable purpose. When others crumble under the pressure of perception, he remains steady, for he has detached from the need to be known. His reward is not attention, but alignment, the quiet satisfaction of living each day true to his code. While others seek the light, he becomes it, walking through life's shadows untouched by arrogance or fear. His anonymity is not obscurity, it is clarity, the freedom to act without distortion. Ultimately, the path of the unseen warrior is not about hiding, it is about transcending. It is the art of living with intention so pure that it no longer requires validation. The samurai who followed this path knew that fame fades, but virtue endures. The modern man must remember this truth. In a time when everyone wants to be known, the unseen warrior chooses to be remembered, not for what he showed, but for what he became. He seeks no audience, for his life is his legacy. He does not chase immortality through image, but through impact, quiet, enduring, and real. When his journey ends, he leaves behind no boast, no spectacle, only the invisible trail of transformation that others may follow. For though unseen, the true warrior's spirit never disappears. It echoes. In silence, in strength, in the timeless rhythm of those who rise not to be noticed, but to be worthy. And so, the path of the unseen warrior draws to a close, not in applause, but in silence, where the strongest echoes of truth reside. You have walked through the forges of solitude, discipline, and fire. You have seen how strength is not in being seen, but in being steadfast. The samurai did not live to impress the world, they lived to master themselves. Their code, their calm, their unseen resilience, these are the marks of true power. In a world that measures worth by visibility, choose the way of stillness. Be the man who acts, not announces, who builds, not boasts, who grows, not for praise, but for purpose. Let your silence be your declaration, your actions your voice, and your discipline your legacy. You do not need the world to witness your becoming, only your own spirit to honor it. Thank you for walking this path of warriors, for forging yourself in the unseen flame of purpose and restraint. If you carry this code within, comment, "I walk unseen," subscribe to this brotherhood of strength, and remember, the truest warriors are not heard in the noise of the world, but felt in the